There we go. We're live. David's in the shot. We don't have our gentle hive sign really fully in the shot, but whatever.
That's going. We got 24 minutes on that clock.
Did you do a post? That's what I'm saying.
I did.
Cozy.
Yeah, we are getting a little cozy in here.
If only you could turn
I know.
it from upright to side.
That would be so nice.
Back here in the dark. Here we are in the garage. Thanks for being here, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. I'm glad you guys are joining us for this podcast.
What is it, number 5?
This is podcast number 5.
The number of freedom.
Did we ever upload number 4?
No, that'll be coming.
Okay,
it's on Facebook. It's just not on YouTube yet.
So probably tomorrow or something. I don't want to make any promises, but we'll have this one along with number 4 uploaded on our YouTube channel. We're accumulating content now, so we don't have to keep repeating ourselves. I think we have a good base of contact. So if you need to reference, just go to the YouTube page. I'll put the link up later or something, and you can see our previous podcasts and maybe start listening to them all. But anyway, what do we got today?
For those of you who have been watching our previous podcasts, there's some themes. We will be repeating ourselves to some degree.
Yeah.
Last week was kind of heavy. We were talking about David's recent return from the island of Molokai and talking about bees and their relationship with the corporate giant Monsanto. We're getting some constructive criticism too. I'm going to try to project my voice a little better. Thanks for all of those of you who have been, contributing some constructive feedback or words of encouragement and love or otherwise. Anything you have to share with us, we appreciate it.
Really, we do. We want the interaction, not only the interaction, but the suggestions, because we are, we're taking this to the next level, step by step. And I don't know about you guys, but I'd like to see a really professional studio. I'd like to see this really take off. So thank you for your input.
Yeah, and if you have any suggestions of things you would like us to research for the following week's podcast, just comment it below and recommend something, and we'd be happy to potentially include it in our discussion.
Yeah, you can dictate what the next podcast will be about.
Were you going to talk about what happened with your computer?
I guess
it's kind of interesting.
I guess we could talk about it a little bit.
It ties right in with the technology kind of theme you guys were bringing up today.
So today's theme is basically artificial intelligence, the hive mind, whether this is a simulation or not, those type of things. You've probably experienced maybe some other YouTube videos or heard through whatever social media that we're currently living in a simulation, and our reality might be a little more tricky than we thought. But yeah, David, after our last podcast, David had done a bunch of research. So yeah, why don't you go ahead and take it away after your research? What happened?
Yeah, so did a lot of research on Monsanto and was going on their website. And if you go on Monsanto's website, they make you accept a cookie policy, which is pretty normal for most websites or businesses. But after doing the research, I tried to go on my computer the following day after we recorded, and I have some sort of malware issue, so my computer won't run. Has some sort of virus, and it's a story in my perception that it could have been influenced from doing sensitive type of research on the internet. And if you dig a little further, there are tons of cases of people that when you type in certain keywords a certain number of times, that there are entities out there that will kind of hack your computer, if you will. So if there's any computer people out there that knows how to do an internal reset on a Dell Precision 5510. Let me know.
Or if people have some maybe internet browsing tips for avoiding such.
And if anybody has any history with getting malware after researching sensitive subjects like Monsanto, which we can call them Bayer, whatever makes you happy. But I find it pretty interesting. I don't, like David said, it's a story, so we don't know for sure. But I myself did some research after that happened, and there's tons of stories that are very similar, and it kind of feeds right into this simulation too. That all of this could be what we're living could be thanks to how far we've come with technology. All of this could be a simulation that we're experiencing right now, and at what point and where does this whoever is writing this the programming is able to also write a malware or a virus, and at what point does it begin and at what point does it stop? And with quantum computing now, there really are no limits. Artificial intelligence can actually learn on its own now, and that's what I find really interesting. You can program your artificial intelligence to learn, and it may start out relatively slow, but eventually it's learning at infinite speed.
So it sounds like what you might be suggesting is that whoever we are, deep down in these, human vessels, you said whoever is programming.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible, you think, that the hive mind itself, or our collective consciousness, is doing the programming automatically, whether we're aware of it or not?
I think that's probably actually what's happening. Because like I said, thanks to quantum computing, there's infinite learning happening. So because of the infinite learning happening, that it could very well be us.
Our brains are like biological quantum computers.
Yes, they are. And we're downloading software constantly. But anyway,
I have one quick little thing that ties, because you're talking about stories, and another theme that's come up amidst our chats has been about mythologies and programming. So this popped out at me from this book called Pronoia by Rob Brenzi, I believe, is the author. It says the universe is made of stories. The poet Muriel Rukeyser said that the universe is composed of stories, not of atoms. The physicist Werner Heisenberg declared that the universe is made of music, not of matter. And we believe that if you habitually expose yourself to toxic stories and music, you could wind up living in the wrong universe, where it's impossible to become the gorgeous genius you were born to be. That's why we implore you to nourish yourself with delicious, nutritious tales and tunes that inspire you to exercise your willpower for your highest good. So it goes on and on. There's a lot of little things about the importance of having some form of narrative that's guiding us through this reality, whatever this reality is, and to take some responsibility and ownership of them being the stories that are inspiring to you, rather than, because you need some story to function on, and if you don't come up with it and love it, then you're going to adopt whatever story is just being fed, whatever common story is floating around in the culture around you, or coming out of the technology that you're staring into, and you could just find yourself in a nightmare of a existence.
So what about mind-altering substances such as, I call them mind-enhancing actually, but you look at DMT and mushrooms, for instance. Those are my two favorite things. And what they do for me in these types of experiences is I see through the illusion really easy. And I actually have an experience with David here where we could see through the patterns to see the matrix, and we both experienced it, and there has been several instances where this has happened. But you know what, that one thing that I talked about that one time about when you turn the older TVs, right, or computer screens, when you turn them on and turn them off, they would all, it would kind of come to a center point like a flash, but there would be this
tube that's in there.
Yeah, it's almost like a vacuum tube, and the screen is well, what I'm saying is the simulation that we're in is almost like that vacuum tube where the screen is turning off and it just goes boop, and the screen flashes, and when it turns on it does the same thing. So is that the Big Bang that we're talking about there? I mean, where does it begin and where does it end? And what part of the simulation are we currently in, and how quickly have we learned? But go ahead.
So I think that comes with like trying to understand that reality isn't real, and it's really easy because we get programmed into this life to view ourselves as separate in the world, like our subjective versus our objective reality. And you know, that conditioning is solely based on dualism. So when we act in the waking world, there's a separation from our heart that kind of like makes us disconnected from one another. So, you know, like, oh, if I work hard, then I deserve those rewards. I deserve a nice car. I deserve a nice home. I deserve to go out and eat at nice restaurants. And that's where, you know, we begin to have this separation. But there's a quote from the Addams family that says, like, what is chaos to a fly is normal to a spider, and what is normal to what is chaos to a spider is normal to a fly. And when you can kind of see that perspective, it is all one. We are a part of this like oneness, this wholeness. And if there wasn't a wholeness in reality, then there wouldn't be a separate lens to view it from. And the yogis and the enlightened beings, you know, they came to this realization that through meditation and through discernment of the unreality of reality, that, and reminding ourselves that what we see is temporary, and yeah, we can perceive evil in the world such as Bayer and Monsanto, but there just is this oneness of being. Because if you take a picture of your city on a map, and then you zoom out, and then you have your county, and then you zoom out, and then you have the island chains of Hawaii, and then you zoom out, and then you have the globe, and then you zoom out and you have star particles, and then you zoom out and you just have galaxies. There's no discernment between what's happening. It's just this totality, this oneness of life. And yeah, it's definitely a practice to remind ourselves that, you know, what we are experiencing is only temporary, and to really tap into that blissful sea. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to dance. We're here to play in this illusionary world, and have faith that there is something that is kind of you know, guiding the higher intelligence, if you will, in the world.
And that's why I love bees so much, and that's what has, I don't know about you two, but it's really helped me to see the oneness of everything is the hive mentality. And I really feel like bees are quote unquote dying and disappearing to bring the awareness to that. So our world, our families, and then spreading out all the way to community, to the world. We really need to work together. We really need to come together. We perform as a family unit much better in numbers. You know, these ideas of family units now being just the husband and wife and children. It's there's so much pressure, and I really feel like the hive mind is something that we really need to emulate. The larger the hive, the better. Well, I mean, there's limits to that too.
It seems like the smaller the hive, or the smaller that family circle,
Mm-hmm.
the easier it is to fall into that idea of separateness.
Yeah.
This is my social circle. This is my everything.
Yeah, just saying the words "my."
One thing that came up with just using the word illusion and seeing through the illusion, I just sort of have a problem with, like, a lot of times that language will, like, okay, so say this is an illusion that we're sort of all swimming through together. It almost like discredits it, or like, because it's an illusion, it means that it's not important, or it's not like of value, maybe,
right.
and that there's something behind the illusion that is, higher up on some scale of importance or something.
Right.
But, I mean, it is a crucial illusion.
It is
And
very crucial.
It's set in place, or it's developed as it is, as a function to allow us to dance in it, or to learn in it.
And I think the illusion comes with how temporal it is. Like, it's not everlasting, right? Like, there's the eternal creator, the source, right? That's always going to be it's always going to have this this presence, and it's the idea that source takes on a multitude of forms, and it's just consciousness. So when we see a separation between another individual, from our unique perspective, it's just a differentiation in awareness,
Mm-hmm.
in that moment, and in that moment in time.
So it's almost like, I'm trying to think about your idea with the TV Big Bang thing.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a playful little story that emerged in my mind of, like, say there's this Godhead oneness that's just the one eternal consciousness that's floating outside of time and space, and this entity is all knowing, all being, all feeling, and just kind of gets bored with that. So make some decision I'm going to explode myself into infinite little holographic shards of myself and have amnesia and flip on this cosmic boob tube, and that's the Big Bang. And it's just been sort of becoming more and more complex as it unfolds into chaos and organization into time and space. That's what I can get from that.
But it might be good to define what a hive mind is for some folks. So
that's where I wanted to go with that, and I wanted to sort of remind myself even of why I'm so inspired by the bees, and why I'm even here, and I feel like there's this greater purpose, or this greater mission that has something to do with the bees. Obviously, mm-hmm. I mean, if you haven't heard about colony collapse disorder, if you're not aware, like everywhere you go, there's bees everywhere. Bees on logos, everything is bees now. Bees. So anyway.
So a hive mind can be considered one shared consciousness, and it kind of operates on this a term called swarm intelligence, which is a large group of individuals where they receive information from a centralized source, and that ultimately drives their decision making. So for bees, they use a communal pheromone, and that kind of dictates, what bees are going to make, do certain tasks, where they're going to find their next food source, if they have to swarm, where's the best location for their new home. And through this, these little bits of information, they're actually able to make the most informed decision. 80% of the time, scientists say that bees will make the best decision in terms of choosing a new home for themselves. And it's just interesting that, if you compare the size of a bee brain, it's smaller than a grain of sand. It has less than 1,000 neurons. And no matter how smart you think you are, the average person has about 85,000 neurons. So, our brain is 85
times greater.
Yeah, times greater than the bee. And in most instances, the bees are able to work in such a unique and free-flowing form that, you know, we're actually trying to mimic their intelligence through artificial intelligence. And that's kind of what AI is doing. They're able to create these small little robots that are able to send information in real time, and then based on that algorithm, aggregate data in order to achieve a task at hand.
So I just wanted to point something out here. By the way, eat shit Earth. Somebody posted, I forgot who, but somebody said, I just wanted to be transparent and let you know that that I call you guys the three white guys with man buns. And I just realized that, yes, all three of us do happen to have man buns today. How about that? Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
So, kind of diving deeper into this idea of artificial intelligence, there's a company called Ununanimous that this past year they took 20 different horse enthusiasts, not experts, enthusiasts, and they asked them what would be the top 4 in the Kentucky Derby. And through that data that they gathered in their artificial intelligence algorithm, they actually were able to predict the first 4 in this past year's Kentucky Derby. They placed a $20 bet on the Derby, and it paid out to $11,000. They posted it in real time when they were doing it, so other people were able to kind of tune into it and also capitalize on the experience. But if you were to take those 20 people's individual responses, they would only be able to guess 1 out of the 4 of the top 4 horses. But through working together, through this like hive intelligence, they're actually able to solve problems that you know, human beings perceive that they can't solve separately.
Yeah, and it's I notice also living the way that we're living now. Just so you know, we opened up our home. Susanna and I opened up our home after the lava came, and some people that were displaced came to live with us. So we have like 13 people living with us right now, and in a little house, and I've never been so happy living with this many people before. I mean, I guess I lived in community once before, and I liked it, and I knew then living in that community that this is the way that I wanted to live the rest of my life. But now that I'm living in such close proximity with everyone here in this house, we're working together, we're playing together, we're eating together, we do everything together, and I just freaking love it.
Yeah, it's a blessing.
It's funny because that made me think of how I was asking something about bees from one hive, if their hive gets removed or their hive is destroyed, whether or not they can join up with a different hive.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a process through that. It's like we kind of landed here based on, I was one of the evacuees. Due to the volcanic eruption, I had nowhere to go. And there's like a vetting process that the bees do, right? It's like not everybody gets welcomed in necessarily to the new hive.
Right, and so when bees get left behind or who knows what happens, they must be with a hive, and especially when we're working with these boxes, the bee boxes that we have. If you move one hive, and let's say there's a couple of hundred bees out working, and they miss the opportunity to go with their hive, there's other hives in the yard that they will join. But it is a process. They can't just fly right in. There's guard bees at the entrance, and these guard
bee and the dogs at the house.
Yeah, and they check you out. You know, they scan your entire body too to make sure you don't have any diseases or anything wrong. And if you have something wrong with you, they say, sorry, you can't join. But, you know, once that process is done, they're immediately fit into a role. Immediately. There's no even, it seems like there's no delay at all. There's no, oh, hey, I'm here. What am I doing? You know, it's just bam, you're here and you're immediately working. You're immediately contributing to the hive. And you're being fed too. You know, that's the other thing that I love watching the bees feed each other. And yesterday, what did we notice? We did a bee removal at the high school here in Pahoa, and it was the day before the storm came. So we only removed 2 pads of comb because the beetles will after going through that traumatic experience, the beetles might take over. So we only give them 2 pads of comb, and it's easier for them to manage. Well, if a storm comes and they can't leave the hive for a few days, well, unfortunately, they don't have any food. And there was a pretty big drone population, which is the males in the hive. And we opened the box yesterday, and the bees had, I don't know, what's the word for it, but they gathered all the drones and had them in one particular spot. And I've never seen that before. So yeah, I'm constantly learning new things thanks to the hive, and ultimately, yeah, this is the way that I want to live. You know, I love this process of living in community, especially in the way that we have it going here.
Well, they're doing inventory of their whole system and reallocating the resources of whether it's food or warmth or whatever they.
Yeah, because the drones are not getting fed. If everybody is suffering in the hive from a lack of food or water, then the drones are last on the list. The normal population has less than 2% drone in it. But sometimes in swarm season and some other times, the drone population will shoot up. And here in my mating yard too, that I make sure that there's a good, decent drone population in the mother hives. But anyway, yeah, they're last on the list. So you know they're feeding each other. The worker bees are feeding each other, but they if there is a lack of food, they're going to say, okay, well, I'm sorry, drones, but you're going to be stuck down here while we feed each other. If there's anything left over, then you get it.
Because they take more food in general, right?
Yeah, because they're working. Or you mean the drones?
Are bigger and they eat more.
Oh, they're constantly eating. That's all they do until they get that moment of their last moment, which is the mating process. And yeah, I don't know if you know the story, but the virgin queen will take her flight, and when she does take that flight, there's a gathering of drones somewhere out on a branch or something, and they take off after her, and the first drone enters her, and after he releases, he actually becomes detached from his penis and falls to his death. And the next drone has to come behind the queen and remove the first drone's penis and to put his in, and the process happens about 20 times, 15 to 20 times. It could happen up to 40 times, they say. But I've actually seen it happen in the mating yard and watched the drones just falling out of the sky, and it's something else to see. But yeah, that's the only thing that's their purpose is mating. But they don't ever work. They just get fed by the worker bees. Yes, drones are the male bees. They just get fed by the worker bees the entire time that they live until that moment, and then they die. So
I wanted to pose like an interesting theory. After doing research on artificial intelligence in the hive mind, kind of came to the realization that human beings are already operating on a hive mind. And when human beings, entered the earth, we were very primitive. And we learned through storytelling, writing books, and information would evolve slowly. Whereas when the internet came, all this information is now at our fingertips, and for a lot of people in the world, it dictates their decision making. Whether it's a Yelp review, what food you are going to eat, what book you want to go read, what movie you want to go see. All this information is dictating your decision making in real time. So it's this idea that this internet is a web of consciousness, and since we love to be social and hear people's opinions and feedbacks, we created this tool for us to do so.
Yeah.
And human beings are like the only ones on the planet that like you get in this body, and you're like, I want to evolve. Like other animals experience evolution through time, but you don't have the bee looking at the squirrel and being like, oh, I want to learn how to climb trees, and then over time, like, you know, the bees start climbing trees like squirrels and gathering nuts. Like human beings just have this like inert behavior to want to, innate behavior to evolve for some reason, and we've looked towards the internet to do so, and it's just super interesting that we think the answer is artificial. Some think the answer is artificial intelligence for our human decision making. NASA has released in March that they have a Mars bee where they're gonna fly it out in Mars to look for methane gases in search of life. There's a bee in Japan that's robotic that's been developed that can already pollinate lily flowers.
What?
So it's just this idea that we're observing nature, which is the bee, and then we're thinking that by observing nature and putting it in a mechanical lens that we can create an intelligence which will fix our problem. But I think the answer lies in our ancestral wisdom. How, you know, the ancestors were loving and treating the land and the Aina, and how they were preserving the microorganisms, and how they were communing with the bees in a very shamanic way. But now we have this idea in our head that, oh, we need to create robotic bees in order to pollinate our almond fields in California, because otherwise we're not going to have enough bees to sustain our population.
So that kind of it kind of makes the topic spread out more a little bit, and I definitely do want to talk about that. It's just sort of a broad topic. So maybe what we can focus on now is what that looks like. Because yes, thank you for the second brain that I have, my cell phone, which I can find any answer at any time. You know, I do notice that sometimes people make fun of or judge themselves or others for using social media or using their phone to find answers, their navigation. But I want to remind you, no need to judge yourself, because you created this. You created this tool that is so super intelligent. You can have the answer to anything that you want at any time in an instant, and you can navigate anywhere in an instant. You type in an address into your cell phone, and you can get wherever you need to go thanks to that phone. And you could say it's taking us from our natural ability to navigate. Well, that is one way to look at things. However, you weren't able to do it without your phone in this particular moment, right? You didn't know where this address was. So if you're paying attention, you are learning, you are expanding. And so anyway, what I was saying is I see that I don't necessarily want a robotic bee pollinating, right? So because I see this, I'm not necessarily afraid that this is happening. I'm not saying, whoa, there's a robotic bee, I'm scared that this is happening. I'm saying, oh, thank you for the reminder. We need to do the work as a tribe, as a community, as a collective. We need to get back to our connection with the earth. We need to get back to our connection with the bees. And how are we going to do that? And that's where I really appreciate Korean natural farming. And I consider that as just a spiritual connection with the Aina, with the land, and each other, a connection with our food. And I see us getting back into a place where we do heal the earth. And it is great that we have these robotic bees. Thank you for the reminder that we need to have a connection with an actual living bee.
I'm looking at these bees, and I'm listening to what you're saying about hive mind and technology, and the cell phone in particular being the go-to, extension that like allows us to tap into this level, this sphere of information that we've built around ourselves. The technology is dependent on, it's got a signal that's coming through this whole network of satellites, and there's people on the other end of whatever information stream that we're tapping into. You need to plug it into the wall. You need electricity from some source. So the technology itself that we're utilizing is part of a hive of technology and electricity and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the bees, and they are tapped into, like you were saying, the bees that have been orphaned from their hives. It's like they just went through like, the grid shut down. They can't access. There's a whole cloud of information around this hive of bees that's built up of all their vibrations and all of their chemical signals and those pheromones.
Their pheromones.
And if I'm imagining them in the hive, when you see this sort of blanket of bees, sometimes it's a ball of bees, they're all connected to each other. It's like they're plugged right into that. And I imagine they have an idea of what's going on everywhere in the hive and what their specific job is at any moment based on that.
Festooning.
If they're out in the field somewhere, maybe their signal's a little spotty and they can rely on whatever sort of, infrared light. They've got, electromagnetic views and things that we can't see. So they've got that stream of information,
mm-hmm. allowing
them to bring resources back. And so I'm listening also to what you said about wisdom lying in these old traditions, in these ancient traditions, Korean natural farming. There's all sorts of, I'm sure there's all sorts of beekeeping throughout history. I just read somewhere that's in those old caves in France, with the cave paintings all over. There's an image of a man surrounded by bees.
Yeah.
I don't remember how old those are, but
right.
We've had ways of communicating as a hive mind for as long as we've been around, and I feel like the future is going to it's already looking like this technology that we've created is necessary in a lot of ways right now. It's getting us to communicate in this, really amped up way, and it could be something that shoehorns us back into those old practices and those old ways, because all of a sudden we're becoming more aware that it's kind of this sinking ship sort of thing. Like, now we are more connected in a way, and now we're waking up quicker to realize what is going on with our environment, and that we are in a very crucial decision-making stage, whether or not we're gonna, float or not.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a necessity that the old ways blend with the technology, and maybe the technology can sort of phase out in some ways that are not working for us.
But the interesting thing about the artificial intelligence is that once it's programmed, it's simply programmed, but once it starts gathering more and more information, it's no longer making decisions based on a human input.
Right.
So the theory is, and kind of the actuality is that these robotic bees, that their goal, or the scientists that created their goal, is that they're able to connect to a Wi-Fi signal and connect to 3D printing, and they're actually able to 3D print themselves in real time and make decisions like out in the world. So the quote unquote scare or the fear would be that you have all these bees that are making decisions that are robot, that aren't actually like really a part of nature, sentient being, and they're making these decisions on pollinating and working with different flowers and plants.
They're going to destroy us.
Well, I mean, that's the thing
We'll
with quantum computers and programming. There really are no limits anymore. If you're teaching something to learn, you can input limits. But as a human, are you really realizing all the potential opportunities? when you created that programming, did you set out did you cover all your bases basically? Did you make
Set
sure
your parameters?
Right. Did you set the proper parameters? Because if you didn't, that artificial intelligence is going to learn everything. It may even get to a point where it says, "Oh, whoever programmed me forgot this. I need to learn this, and now I'm going to learn this." And wow, that I could see where fear would come in. I could see, and then I could also see the reflection in us too. Because where are we going with this?
Yeah, and I think that's what goes back to the holographic universal reality, and coming back to who is the I that is having this experience? Like who is actually this I? And that I is unmoving. It's beyond personality, but fully aware of the experience with no differentiation between anything at all. And that is what knows, because that is what is.
Pretty trippy. So yeah, there's many different things that about this potential simulation that we're in. What are the limits? Are there any limits?
I think the limits are linguistics, because we try to use words to describe reality from a certain human vantage point.
Right.
But words can allow us to understand a situation like that we're in perceiving, but it ultimately, words can't allow us to understand reality. Like that's something that's like kind of beyond ourselves. Like that's going inward. And
well, I've often said too that I really feel like humans will be at a place in the not very distant future where we no longer speak. And because I notice the bees are communicating through many different things. And you said there's things that we can't see. Actually, going back to the DMT and the mushrooms again, there are things that I've seen that I'm not quite sure about. So one time you see these bees lined up in a particular formation throughout the hive, and they're fanning, and they're circulating. They're creating a whirlpool with air. They're completing, or they're keeping the temperature throughout the hive perfectly even, and they're strategically placed all throughout the hive, just sitting there fanning, and you can actually see that. You can see the line of air. And also the other thing is there's trails that bees follow. And are they leaving it with a scent, or are they literally drawing a line in the sky that we can't see? But let's say for the average hive, there's 12 to 15 different trails that the bees are taking. And they literally follow it to a T, unless you're standing in the way. But you'll see, if you sit there in front of a hive, you can see that one bee right after the next is following the same line, and they're even waving back and forth as they enter and land on the porch of the hive. And you can see the next bee doing the same exact thing in what appears to be the same line. So is that, yes, Deborah, is that vibration? Is that through scent? What is it? Well, this illusion, whatever it is, that keeps me from being able to see with these eyes, my limited senses, because yes, in our human form, we're limited by our five senses and this mouth that can only say the words that we've learned, right?
And through our experiences.
Through our experiences.
And then there's like a separation between, it's like carbon matter, right? So there's like, I'm made of carbon, you're made of carbon, and it's just a change in awareness. So it's almost like a wavelength. Kind of like when you look at the ocean, like you don't say, oh, that wave is separate from that like incoming wave tide. It's all a part of the ocean. It's all a part of this wholeness where we're coming from. So, I mean, yeah, I think it just goes back to just discerning and meditating.
But I've actually seen that line in the sky, and I'm excited to see what else I can see. And what you were just talking about reminded me of, I heard it somewhere, I don't remember where, but the easiest way for me to remember that yes, indeed, we are all one is the ocean, right? The raindrop leaves and returns to the ocean. And what is the raindrop? The raindrop is the ocean. It appears to be separate. It appears to be one individual thing, but it comes from the ocean and returns to the ocean, and it's never ever not part of the ocean.
Yeah.
Right. It's always the ocean. So wherever it is that we came from, wherever the fuck we came from, wherever we're going back to, this experience that we're in right now, we aren't separate. You know, it appears through our limited senses, indeed, that we are separate. But yeah, I just really am super excited and thankful that the bees are giving us this opportunity. And Joey here was pointing out, he was talking about the hive. He's looking at the hive literally right behind us in the garage where we're at right now doing this, our little makeshift studio. There's a feral hive moved into a stack of boxes that I just have randomly placed in the garage. And boy, that really benefited them during this past storm.
Yeah.
In case you all haven't heard, it rained like something like 70 inches in 5 days here. And I swear, it seemed like that hurricane literally just picked up water and threw it on the Big Island over 5 days. It's just a constant, we got dumped on for 5 days. It was insane. But I think
the language thing is a good thing to kind of come back around to, because you'll hear anecdotal evidence of people, whether they're, you know, in a fever state or some sort of altered state of consciousness, speaking fluently in a different language.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching that Philip K. Dick clip, and there's one little story about him in there where, for whatever, I think he was on LSD, but he all of a sudden started speaking Latin very casually, as if he were, you know, back in some, you know, Roman community or something. And I've heard other stories of this. I've heard, you know, just firsthand accounts of people, you know. One in particular, a teacher of mine was talking about one of his siblings who was sick with a fever and woke up in the middle of the night and was just speaking fluent French. And because somebody else in the household knew French, they're like, this kid's never spoke French in their life, but they're, you know, tapping into some sort of place where they can speak some language that they otherwise would have no idea how to speak.
If somebody is speaking a language, no matter what it is, across the globe, I have that ability, and that's basically all anything is the collective consciousness gives you the ability that anything that is quote unquote learned out there, you can immediately tap into. And I feel as our intelligence grows as a species, and the computer intelligence is growing, I don't really see any limits anymore. I'm also discovering how fast that I personally am learning certain things that I had zero experience with, and the only limitation I have is my mind saying, "Oh, I can't do this," or "Oh, I don't know this." Even saying you don't know something isn't true. If somebody knows it somewhere, you know it, and it's the ability whether you can tap into it or not, whether you can, you know, find that program within you.
Well, that was the other really eerie part of that same clip, is just the phenomenon of Philip K. Dick's writings being pulled out of some reality, some future reality. He'd write some story and then see that it happened somewhere with the same names and the same characters, sometimes even himself. So, it inspires me to learn other languages, to just as an exercise in keeping an open and flexible mind around things. That's what I'm getting mostly out of this, is the value of staying open-minded, especially when someone's saying something that I don't agree with.
Oh,
You know,
that can be hard.
that could be a gift. That could be a gift too, because they're presenting something that I obviously have a lot of resistance toward. So, you know, there's a lot of examples where I have to have some sort of boundary if someone's acting or speaking in a way that's harmful or causing suffering. Then I'm not gonna stand for that. But keeping an open mind, keeping my social circle as flexible and open as possible too, because this can happen very easily on your social media. If you surround yourself with just, you know, like-minded
people, and the algorithm.
Which is comforting. You get a lot of the same. It's the echo chamber effect.
Yeah.
You know, which can just be limiting. It goes against having just a stance of taking an open-minded.
Well, comfort period can be limiting. You know, you know, they have these names for a reason. Growing pains. It's not just in the physical aspect that you're experiencing growing pains. The more you learn, at least for me, I'm going to just speak for myself. The more I learn, the more sometimes I find myself in a really uncomfortable position, you know, because I think I already know something, right? And then somebody presents this idea and I'm like, oh shit, damn, I've been doing it wrong the whole time. And you know,
I like the ideas that we're throwing out there, but I'm not going to pretend I understand quantum computing, because I don't.
Right.
I don't understand how bees communicate with each other and, you know, make the right decision where they're going to live. I don't understand that.
But we are learning. We are absolutely learning.
And it's like learning is an analogy for, or a metaphor for, like an antenna, right? Like,
yes.
So the more information we can acquire or receive, that's like a metaphor for light. And the brighter our light, the bigger our shadow that's casted. So I think that kind of relates to the growing pains, right? So the more that you're able to receive and you understand as like an ultimate truth in reality, then, you know, there's going to be more growth, more change, more transformation that's going to happen in the process.
Somebody said, we had Deborah say that it appears as though we've lost our sensitivity. And I really do feel like sensitivity is key, and I choose to see things in a positive light. I actually think we're becoming more sensitive. I really do. That's my perception. However, I have noticed, you know, there's two. Just in general, it seems like the duality or the polarity is super powerful right now. I mean, in everything, in every way. I mean, Donald Trump is our president. You know, that's weird to me. That's pretty trippy. Like, how could he be president?
Well, it's almost like he was able to get to that place because he is insensitive in a lot of ways, to where he can. It's like, how many people can you step on to get where you want to be and still feel,
right,
you know, like you're a good person getting up in the morning and you can fall asleep at night.
But
the sensitivity thing, I like that you brought that up, because sometimes, especially as, like, you know, being raised a young man in our culture, it's like you don't want to be too sensitive or show that, because it's people will take advantage of it. It's a weakness, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I like the word perceptive or perceptiveness. Because it truly is a superpower. The more sensitive or perceptive you are, it can be overwhelming, and it's like the brighter light casting, you know, more of a grand shadow, as I explore this realm of like emotional intelligence and emotional sensitivity, and being receptive to my own emotional landscape as well as those around me. Mm-hmm. And how to navigate that on a skillful level that's not causing more damage. I know that I'm a very sensitive person, because I feel like I've learned that through just the degree of suffering that I've found through addiction. I think those of us who are prone to addiction are hypersensitive people, and because it can be so overwhelming to have, you know, our senses flare up, it can be painful. we'll try to numb it out. We'll try to drown it out through whatever it is, whatever mechanism will seem to help with that.
I can relate.
And I find that people that are very, prone to things like this are artists and musicians and people that have the superhuman ability to, if they choose to take this route, you can transform that suffering and whatever it is that you're picking up on those sensory levels into something beautiful and helpful for everybody else.
And really display your superpower. And somebody just said, we're all capable of thank you, Elaine, we're all capable of the highest high and the lowest low, and it is a choice. Abso-fucking-lutely, it is a choice. Everything is a choice, and I really appreciate that comment right there. I am in constant choice. Everything that I'm doing, I'm choosing, including how I feel about something. Nobody has power over me to make me feel anything. I choose to be mad. I choose to be upset. I choose to be happy, and like she says, I could choose to be in that shadow. Or I could choose to be in the light.
Yeah, and yeah, just connecting to that, like anything that has a name, that we give a name to, or has a form, is temporal, and in this definition that we've been talking about, it's unreal. And yeah, when Monsanto or Bayer kind of gets you down, or the news or whatever, maybe one of your reflections or whatever it may be. Just remembering that, like, we are one with this eternal bliss, and it takes on in infinite forms and a number of different varieties. And when we can really quiet our mind and get rid of these thoughts and these perceptions of what we think reality is, we can become, like, quote unquote, liberated. And that's what these spiritual masters or these teachers are saying, because they're able to see through this cosmic illusion and laugh and just bring this awareness of love and joy in presence into every single moment, and connecting with their eternal self and realizing that no matter what I perceive in this moment in time, like, as long as I'm connected to my heart and I'm centered, then everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, everything is beautiful.
Because life is just a continuation of our experience and of this consciousness. Because when we leave our meat bodies and change address, if you will, experience is going to keep on continuing on. Their life is going to keep moving, and it's just a matter of what form and what matter we take on at that point.
Do you have any more keynotes that you wanted to talk about? We're kind of coming to a close here with our podcast today. Once again, thanks for joining us, everyone. And if you missed it or you wanna go back to it, we're gonna have a link later in the comments to our YouTube channel, and we have 4 previous episodes. So by tomorrow, we should have all 5 episodes uploaded. We have some pretty good content going so far.
Some people have reached out about sponsorship too. We might have some exciting new partners in this endeavor coming up. We'll let you know about all that. And if you want to get involved, just reach out.
And if anyone's associated with Mariyama, the sprayer company, maybe we could get a sponsor from Mariyama to start spraying the microbes around Puna.
Yeah, that's one of our... We have, at least I'll speak for myself, I have several missions, I guess you'd say. Obviously, the bees is my most prevalent and biggest one right now. And long and short of it, I want to show that through Korean natural farming, structured water, and caring for the bees in a really biodynamic, organic, doesn't really cover the term. Working with bees in a holistic, spiritual manner is really showing that we don't need any chemicals in the hives. We don't need antibiotics, and I have the proof for that.
Artificial insemination.
Yeah, artificial insemination. We just got to get rid of that stuff. So yeah, and then we also have another mission where we want to help. The SO2 gases have done some pretty big damage out here. The lava's done some pretty big damage, and with the Korean natural farming solutions, we literally take what appears to be dead and bring it right back to life. And what a better way to feed your plants. I mean, there really isn't a better way, because you can go buy some chemical fertilizer at the store and throw it on the ground, but can you put a handful of that chemical fertilizer in your mouth and does it do you any good? No. But with the Korean natural farming solutions, you can literally drink it, and it actually does some good for your gut, your flora.
Just dropping a link. September 8th, if you're in Pune or on the Big Island, going to be hosting a natural farming workshop here, hands-on at 11 a.m. to 2, could go later. We're going to be talking about the 9 core solutions and doing some hands-on activities so you can start applying these solutions to your garden immediately. Those classes are donation-based only. No one's going to be turned away due to a lack of funds. So if you're interested, just comment or reach out, and send you the information on when and where that's happening.
Just to clarify what that sprayer was about, it's like an agricultural device that you were going to put on the truck and spray these solutions.
Yeah, I mean, it has like a 2-stroke engine. You can get a 4-stroke engine too, but comes with like a commercial grade sprayer, shoots up 40 feet in the air in a canopy, and it's transportable, because ultimately, like, once the garden here is Malamed and there's more free time available, would love to be able to come to places that need remediating and need these microbes, and can just spray them for you, and
and that ties into the fact that we have a nonprofit, an official 501c3, and we want to be able to offer these things to the community. Education for free, the actual application. So we need your help for that. Your contributions give us the ability to take somebody that's directly affected by the lava and bring their plants back to life, so they can start growing their food again. Yeah, you had any more key points you wanted to talk about that you did some research on?
That's basically it. There is, like, pretty crazy that the Navy does have this technology now where they're actually able to send these like little like bee-like robot kind things, like miniature drones, and they're able to kind of like all gather around an enemy ship, and without any like human pressing the button, they're able to like communicate with each other in real time and like send missiles that like will destroy a ship and on the spot. So I don't know. I think it's interesting.
That's more than interesting. That's an interesting way to close this podcast too.
What if you had some little robo bee that would go find, someone that was in trouble, someone that was like lost in the wilderness, and send, supplies or help. You could twist that technology into a very beneficial,
dangerous jobs.
Yeah.
Rather than
safety.
I mean, of course, the military gets all the technology before any of the common folk are applying it to anything else. But it is, just going back to that little thing I read before. It's like, I'm going to choose to be aware of the shadowy sides of things that are going on in this reality, in this simulation. But I'm not going to get stuck in that negative story.
Yeah, not
I mean,
attached
being aware of it, I think, is important.
Yeah.
But having some sort of positive approach to it that's not full-on Pollyanna, story. That's where the creativity comes in.
Yeah.
I think. It's really easy for me to imagine robotic bees destroying us all.
But I'm going to think about how awesome these robotic bees are and all the good things that they're going to do instead of that. That's for sure. So yeah, maybe we'll give you guys a little bit of a homework assignment. If you're going to tune in next week, maybe watch some YouTube videos on simulation and alternate realities, and maybe you can contribute a little bit more to next week's episode. And yeah, the hive mind. If you'd like to learn about bee biology, I would recommend searching Jamie Ellis on YouTube, and You can find out the interesting parts of the bee's body and what they're made of and all that good stuff.
And they smell with their antenna.
Interesting stuff. So yeah. Do some research over this week, and we'll see you on Monday, next Monday.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Oh shit. Of course.